Billings up to Clark. Clark takes her first shot. Finds herself down low, kicks it out to Caitlin Clark. Clark puts it up, getting themselves prepared for the World Cup that they've already qualified for, but really not letting their foot off the glass on offense.
The sports media keeps covering for the people in charge and is not telling you the real story. If you are only watching the box scores and listening to the polished post-game talk, you are missing what actually happened. They want you to think that keeping Caitlin Clark on the bench to start this game was a smart coaching call, a way to ease her back in after 200 days away. It was not smart. It was a bad decision, plain and simple. What really happened was that the people who have run women's basketball for years were trying to hold on to their power for just a little longer. They put Chelsea Gray and the older veterans in the starting lineup, not because it gave the team a better chance to win, but because they're scared of what Caitlin Clark represents. She is the biggest game-changing force this sport has ever seen. And the second she steps on the floor, every other player's value drops. After 6 months away from the game, resting and watching from the sidelines, she came back and looked like she never left. The numbers she put up should shake every team in the league. 17 points, 12 assists, and a plus 35 rating in limited playing time. A plus 35 rating does not happen by just playing well. It happens when one player shifts the entire flow of the game on both ends of the floor. It happens when the defense has to worry about things she has not even done yet. Every one of her 12 assists came from total control of the game, not just good sharing of the ball. She sees open players before they are even open and puts them in position to score easy shots, making everyone around her look far better than they would be on their own. Starting her on the bench was the same as a company having its best product and keeping it hidden because the older employees are worried about their jobs.
To what Caitlin Clark is going to do in year 3, you know what? I don't blame Brianna Stewart, Brianna Turner, Nafisa Collier, Aneka Ogwumike if they say themselves, we can't get beat like this. This girl is coming for revenge.
You could hear the concern in how people talked about this game. And honestly, you cannot blame Brianna Stewart, Brianna Turner, or Nafisa Collier for feeling it. Nobody on national TV wants to say it out loud. But the mental pressure is real. The stars who have spent the last 10 years building their names and earning their spots are now watching someone make all of that feel ordinary. Stewart and Collier are great players by any fair measure, but they play the game within its normal limits. Caitlin Clark does not care about those limits. She tears them apart and sets a completely new standard in their place. When other teams watch film of this return game, they're not looking for weak spots to attack. They are looking at their own futures and feeling worried. They watched a player who had been off the court for 200 days come back with zero signs of being rusty, hitting cross-court passes with a speed and accuracy that most defenders simply cannot keep up with. The rest of the league now knows what is coming. Year 3 is not going to be a back and forth battle. It is going to be a painful lesson for every team that spent the off-season doing nothing differently on defense. Every franchise that did not adjust its game plan is going to pay for it well before the season is halfway done. We also have to talk about the locker room culture that allowed a player like Clark to come off the bench at all. Chelsea Gray is a respected veteran, and her career speaks for itself. But right now, she is not the best option at that position. The media always pushes young players to wait their turn and show respect for those who came before them. But in professional sports, past reputation only goes so far. Real leadership is not holding on to your starting spot because of what you did 3 years ago. It is knowing when someone else gives your team a better chance to win and stepping aside to let them do it.
Clearly the best player. The team, if you can believe it, looked night and day. Clark on the floor, Clark on the bench. Clark on the floor, ball's moving, pace is flowing, Clark on the bench.
This point could not be more clear. The difference between Clark on the court and Clark on the bench is night and day, 2 completely different games. When the older point guards are running things, the offense slows down, becomes easy to read, and gives the defense plenty of time to get set. The team falls into slow, half-court plays that let defenders catch their breath and prepare. The moment Clark crosses that line, everything speeds up. fast breaks become a real threat. The ball moves quickly and finds the right player before the defense can even get into position. The coaching staff looked at that clear difference and still chose to keep her coming off the bench, which is hard to understand. That is not a coaching decision. That is choosing to keep people comfortable over doing what actually wins games. This is the same reason big companies fall apart. They keep using old methods because those methods worked before, and they are too set in their ways to try something better. Chelsea Gray and the other veterans know exactly what is going on. They're not missing what is right in front of them. They can sense when the crowd loses energy as Clark sits down, and they can feel the whole building wake up the moment she checks back in.
You know what a real vet would do? A real vet would say, you know what? Here's my spot. I ain't competing with that. You know what? We're a better team if you take my spot and I try to fit in where I can get it.
Any veteran who truly understood the moment would walk up and say, "Take my spot. I am not going to try to match that." That is what this whole situation comes down to. The older players are holding on tightly to a role they can no longer fully carry. Instead of accepting a supporting position and helping guide the younger players, they're insisting on staying front and center, and it is showing in the early turnovers and the messy first quarters. The real problem is that the coaching staff does not have the courage to sit the veterans down and have that honest conversation. They are letting old habits and hurt feelings get in the way of what this team could actually become. When Clark finally came off the bench and immediately connected on a clean pick and roll with Monique Billings, that single play said everything that needed to be said about the starting lineup. She makes the game look easy because her mind works faster than most players on the floor. The way her presence changes things goes well beyond her own stats. It raises the level of every player around her. We saw Angel Ree, Ryan Howard, Paige Buchers, and Kiki Ariafin all play noticeably better the moment Clark started running the offense. Take Angel Ree, for example. The media likes to frame Clark and Ree as rivals in a battle where only one can come out ahead. But what the actual game tape shows is something completely different and far more dangerous for the rest of the league. When Clark and Ree are on the floor at the same time, the pick and roll between them cannot be stopped. Clark pulls two defenders toward her with the threat of her shot, then drops a perfectly timed pass right to Ree rolling to the basket. Nobody can guard it. Clark takes Ree's physical, rebounding heavy style and turns it into a finishing weapon by putting the ball exactly where it needs to be. Then add Paige Buchers into the mix. When Buchers and Clark are in the backcourt together, the defense has no good answer. They cannot crowd Clark on her drives because Buchers is standing wide open ready to shoot. They cannot send extra pressure at Buchers because Clark is already moving to an open spot for a long three. There is no winning option for the other team. Clark makes every single player around her better, which makes keeping her on the bench even harder to defend from both a team and a business standpoint. This leads to the most uncomfortable truth in this whole conversation. What we just watched is not only a sign of what is coming this season, it is the clearest proof, yet, that what happened in the summer of 2024 was a deliberate choice. For months, the people in charge of the sport told the public that Clark was left off the Olympic team because she needed rest, lacked experience, or was not ready for the physical style of international play. None of that was true. It was a planned, coordinated effort to keep the older names protected from being outshone on the biggest stage in the world.
Folks, this is why she wasn't on the team in 2024. They know she would have came in dominating. She would have came in wrecking-ish. And the story...
This is exactly why she was not on the team in 2024. They knew she would have walked in and taken over, and the whole conversation would look a lot like it does right now. That is the hard, honest truth that the people making those selection decisions and writing those sponsorship checks did not want to face. If Caitlin Clark had been placed on that 2024 Olympic roster, she would not have quietly sat back and waited for her chance. She would have stepped onto that international stage and immediately taken control of the offense. leaving the established veterans with very little to do in front of an audience watching from all around the world. The people in charge understood that if she played, the entire focus of the tournament would move away from the group of longtime stars and land directly on Clark as the new face of the sport. They left her off the team not to look out for her, but to look out for themselves. They kept her out of the spotlight because her presence alone would have shown just how much the players they had been promoting for years were being carried by the system around them. But you cannot keep something this good out of the picture forever. The 200 days away are done. She is back, and the coaching staff sitting her on the bench is one of the worst decisions this team can make right now. Every single minute she spends on that bench is wasted time, wasted entertainment, and wasted opportunity for this team. The fans see it, the other teams see it, and the veterans in their quietest and most honest moments see it too. The idea that there is some kind of earned order to follow was completely torn apart by a performance that included 17 points, 12 assists, and a plus 35 rating, while she was barely given a full quarter of playing time. You do not bring the most valuable and effective player in the sport off the bench to protect the feelings of someone who turned the ball over on the very first play of the game against a team they should easily handle. You do not slowly work your best player into the rotation and hope things fall into place. You put her out there from the start and let everyone else figure out how to keep up. That is where this sport is headed now. The days of slow, predictable offense built around veteran names are finished. What comes next belongs to the kind of fast, open, smart basketball that Clark runs better than anyone in the game. She does not just show up and play. She controls how the entire game is played and how much every other player on the floor is worth in that moment. If the coaching staff refuses to make her the clear starting point of everything this team does, they're not just making a bad basketball call. They are actively working against their own team's success. The change that everyone has been seeing coming is not on its way anymore. It is already here, sitting on the bench, ready to come in and prove every doubter wrong. Start her from the beginning, or deal with what happens when you continue to stand in the way of someone this unstoppable. The decision has already been made by the results on the floor. And right now, every bit of control over where this team goes belongs to Caitlin Clark.